Man refuses to listen when people warn him not to bring a pet snake into his home. Alone in his apartment, a man rum family guy. At first he assumed that Lucifer had simply slithered away, but there was no sign of the snake anywhere. Then he noticed something strange. The terrarium was clean, the water was fresh. It was as if Lucifer had simply vanished into thin air. But after a week, the neighbor's family began to worry. They called the police, who eventually paid a visit to the man. The man didn't seem to notice them at all, his eyes still fixed on the hallway. The police were forced to fire their weapons, but their bullets had no effect on the snake. It continued to slither forward, its hissing growing louder and more menacing. Every night a black fog would emerge from the cracks in the door, slithering into the hallway like a living thing. But where it went or what happened to it, no one knew. That was until one of the cops noticed a slight breeze coming from under the apartment door. When they opened it, they found hundreds of tiny snakes, all staring at them with their mesmerizing yellow eyes. It seemed the snake had multiplied and was now preying on the building's inhabitants. They fired again and again, but it was in vain. Finally, the snake stopped its advance and retreated back into the terrarium. When they knocked on his door, he didn't answer. The table beside him was a torn photograph of a woman. The police searched the apartment but found no trace of the snake or any signs of a struggle. The man had apparently let the snake loose and then killed himself. The police were baffled and could make no sense of the events that had transpired there. Concerned by his neighbor's prolonged absence and the man's refusal to open the door, the police decided to force their way in. A few days later, the man's girlfriend came to visit, only she never left. And a month after that, his landlord followed suit. In fact, nobody who entered that apartment ever came out, so the police decided to install security cams outside the apartment. Then he looked under the floorboards and found hundreds of baby snakes, all staring at him with their hypnotic gaze. Panicked, he grabbed his stuff and ran. But as he stumbled out into the street, he felt something slither around his leg. Looking down, he saw a tiny snake with glowing yellow eyes, and as he made his escape, he heard it whisper, "You're next." Alone in his apartment, a man decides to adopt an albino snake. It was extremely rare, even for a pet store with a shady reputation like this one. But something about the snake's mesmerizing yellow eyes drew him in. The sight that greeted them was both bizarre and disturbing. There in the middle of the room was a large terrarium filled with a black fog. Emerging from it was a snake so huge that it was impossible to tell its size. Its scales shimmered like obsidian, and its eyes glowed an eerie yellow. Startled by the sudden intrusion, the snake reared back, hissing loudly. The police were terrified and quickly retreated from the apartment. Maybe it was love at first sight, or maybe he just didn't have anyone else to turn to. Either way, he paid for the snake and named it Lucifer. The next morning, he woke up to find the cage empty. Over the next few weeks, the apartment became unlivable. Food began to rot on the floor and garbage piled up in the sink. The man became increasingly disheveled, his clothes growing dirty and his hair unkempt. All of his energy seemed to be focused on staring intently at the hallway where Lucifer had disappeared. One night, his neighbor went missing. First, the man didn't think much of it. People came and went all the time. As they entered the apartment, they found the man sitting in a chair, still staring into the hallway. As they watched in horror, the snake began to slither towards them, its black fog following close behind. When the police finally gathered their courage to re-enter the apartment, they found the man kneeling on the ground. He appeared to be praying, but it wasn't over yet, and what they saw on the tapes was even more bizarre. He tried to kill it with a shotgun, but the snake simply shed its skin and disappeared.